The champagne flute shattered against the marble floor, golden liquid spreading like blood across white stone. 200 guests turned to stare as my mother-in-law, Victoria Hawthorne, stood at the center of my wedding reception with a document clutched in her manicured claws. "Attention, everyone." Her voice cut through the classical music like a blade. "Before we continue celebrating, there's a small matter of family business to address. My name is Sophia Bennett. Well, Sophia Hawthorne now as of 3 hours ago." I stood frozen in my $30,000 wedding dress, watching the woman who'd made the past 2 years of my life hell advance toward me with predatory grace. My new husband, Marcus, stepped beside me. Not to protect me, I noticed. To flank me, like a hunter cornering prey. "Darling Sophia," Victoria purred, loud enough for every guest to hear. "As you know, the Hawthorne family has certain traditions. Real wives share everything with their husbands. Everything." She slapped the document on the gift table. "Your dear grandmother left you quite the inheritance last month, didn't she? $2 million, if the lawyers were accurate." Whispers rippled through the crowd. Some guests looked scandalized. Others, Victoria's society friends, nodded approvingly. "Mom," Marcus said, but his tone wasn't protesting. It was prompting. "Maybe we should discuss this privately." "Nonsense." Victoria's laugh tinkled like breaking glass. "We're all family here. Sophia understands that joining the Hawthornes means joining completely. Don't you, dear?" I felt 200 pairs of eyes boring into me. My own parents sat at their table, my mother's face pale with shock, my father half rising from his chair. I caught his eye and shook my head slightly. "Of course," I said, my voice steady as silk. "I understand perfectly." Victoria's smile could have curdled cream. "Then you won't mind signing this little transfer document. It simply moves your inheritance into the Hawthorne Family Trust. Standard procedure. All our wives have done it." That was a lie. Marcus's sister-in-law, Jennifer, had tried to warn me at the bridal shower. She'd pulled me aside, wine-drunk and bitter. "Run," she'd whispered. "They took everything from me, my trust fund, my dignity, my soul. Run while you can." I'd thought she was being dramatic. Now, watching Victoria produce an expensive Mont Blanc pen from her clutch, I understood. This wasn't about tradition. This was about control. Complete, suffocating control. "The papers, sweetheart," Marcus murmured in my ear. His hand found the small of my back, not comforting but pushing. "Just a formality. You know I love you." Did he? Or did he love the $2 million my grandmother had left me? The grandmother who'd built her fortune from nothing, who'd taught me to read contracts before I could read fairy tales, who'd whispered on her deathbed, "Trust no one with what I've given you, Sophie." No one. But I smiled. I took the pen from Victoria's hand, feeling its weight. The crowd held its breath as I leaned over the document. "I should probably read this first," I said lightly. Victoria's laugh was sharp. "Oh, darling, don't be ridiculous. It's your wedding day. Besides, it's all standard legal language. Marcus had our family lawyers draw it up specially." "How thoughtful," I murmured, eyes scanning the first page. It was exactly what I'd expected. A complete transfer of all assets, irrevocable, effective immediately. "Sophie," Marcus's voice carried a warning now. "Everyone's waiting." I looked up at him, this man I'd fallen for 2 years ago. Handsome, charming Marcus who'd swept me off my feet with romantic dinners and surprise trips to Paris. Who'd proposed with his grandmother's ring at sunset on a private beach. Who'd waited until 3 hours after our vows to show his true face. "You're right," I said. "Everyone is waiting." I flipped to the signature page. Victoria practically vibrated with anticipation. Marcus's hand tightened on my back. The crowd leaned forward. And I signed. Victoria snatched the document before the ink was dry, triumph blazing in her eyes. "Welcome to the family, Sophia." Truly. The reception erupted back into motion. Music resuming, conversations flowing. Several of Victoria's friends approached to congratulate her on maintaining family standards. My parents looked stricken. Marcus kissed my cheek, murmuring, "That wasn't so hard, was it?" I smiled and smiled and smiled, because Victoria Hawthorne, in her greed and arrogance, had made one crucial mistake. She hadn't read the document before presenting it to me. She'd simply trusted that the family lawyers had drawn up what she'd ordered. But I'd known this was coming. Jennifer's warning hadn't fallen on deaf ears. I'd spent the last 3 months preparing, and I'd made a few special arrangements of my own, including a visit to Hawthorne and Associates 2 weeks ago, where I'd met with James Pritchard, the senior partner. I'd had tears in my eyes and a recording device in my purse as I'd explained how concerned I was about signing away my inheritance, how Marcus had threatened to call off the wedding if I didn't comply, how Victoria had made it clear I'd never be accepted without surrendering my assets. James, bless his ethical heart, had been horrified. That's coercion, Ms. Bennett. Potentially criminal. I can't be party to. But they'll destroy me if I don't sign, I'd sobbed. The wedding is in 2 weeks. Please, isn't there something you can do? And James, 50 years in practice and thoroughly disgusted by his biggest client's behavior, had done something. He'd drawn up 2 documents. One was the transfer Victoria expected. The other was what Victoria had just triumphantly seized from my hands. A binding, irrevocable transfer, just not the kind she'd expected. Instead of signing over my inheritance, I'd just signed over my student loans. All $387,000 of them, from undergraduate through law school. The document transferred all debt obligations related to my education, present and future, to the Hawthorne Family Trust. But that wasn't the best part. The best part was the second page, which Victoria hadn't bothered to flip to in her haste. The page that outlined the family tradition clause I'd asked James to add. The one that stated any attempt to coerce financial transfers from family members would result in an automatic reversal of all Hawthorne Trust assets to the victim of said coercion, with 200 witnesses to Victoria's public demands. I gave it an hour, long enough for the cake to be cut, for the champagne toasts to flow, for Victoria to loudly tell anyone who'd listen about how she'd protected the family interests. Then I felt my phone buzz. A text from James. Document filed with the court. Verification complete. Congratulations on your wedding, Ms. Bennett. I excused myself to the bathroom, where Jennifer was waiting. She'd been hiding there since the ceremony, face pale but determined. Did you get it? I asked. She held up her phone, showing the video she'd recorded of the entire confrontation. Every word, every threat, every witness. Send it to James, I said. And Jennifer? Thank you for warning me. Her smile was fierce. They did the same thing to me 5 years ago. Took my entire trust fund. I've been waiting for someone smart enough to fight back. Well, I said, touching up my lipstick in the mirror, the wait is over. When I returned to the reception, the atmosphere had shifted. Victoria stood frozen by the gift table, cell phone pressed to her ear, face draining of color. Marcus was beside her, gesturing frantically as he spoke to someone on his own phone. I glided over, wedding dress flowing behind me. Problem? Victoria's eyes, when they met mine, were wild. What did you do? I signed your document, I said innocently. Just like you asked. In front of everyone. This says you transferred your debts. Oh, I peered at the paper in her shaking hands. How strange. That's not what you told everyone I was signing. You said it was a transfer of assets to the family trust. You said it was tradition. Marcus grabbed my arm. Fix this. Now. I looked down at his hand, then up at his face. I believe the Hawthorne family tradition is that real wives share everything with their husbands. Everything includes debt, doesn't it? You little. I'd be very careful about your next words, I said softly. We have 200 witnesses to your mother's coercion. My phone has been recording since I walked back in. And Jennifer, waved Jennifer, has video of the entire confrontation. Jennifer waved cheerfully from across the room. Victoria's phone rang again. She answered, listened, then actually swayed on her feet. That's impossible. Check again. What do you mean frozen? What do you mean under investigation? I leaned in close, speaking just for her. The tradition clause was my special touch. Your attempt at public coercion triggered an automatic audit of the Hawthorne Trust. Every transaction, every transfer, every dirty little secret, including the $3 million you stole from Jennifer 5 years ago. You can't. I can. I did. I'm a lawyer, Victoria. Did Marcus never mention that? I specialized in financial fraud before I met your son. I smiled sweetly. My grandmother didn't just leave me money. She left me the tools to protect it. The reception was in chaos now. Guests whispered and stared as Victoria sank into a chair. Marcus paced frantically, and somewhere in the corner, my parents were trying very hard not to smile. I picked up a champagne flute and tapped it with a knife. The room fell silent. I'd like to propose a toast, I announced. To family traditions. To sharing everything. And to my new mother-in-law, who taught me the most valuable lesson of all. Always read the fine print. I raised my glass to Victoria, who looked like she might faint. Welcome to the family. Truly, the irony was delicious. In trying to steal my inheritance, Victoria had exposed her own financial crimes. The investigation would take months, maybe years. The Hawthorne Trust would be frozen throughout. And my student loans? They were now the legal responsibility of the Hawthorne estate. As for my marriage to Marcus? Well, that was easily fixed. Annulment papers were already drawn up, citing coercion and fraud. James had prepared those too, bless him. I spent my wedding night in a hotel suite, counting down the hours until Monday morning when the court would receive all our filings. Jennifer kept me company, sharing stories of how Victoria had controlled and humiliated her for years. She made me sign over my dead mother's life insurance, Jennifer said quietly. Said it was family tradition. I was 22 and grieving. I didn't know any better. You'll get it back, I promised. Every penny with interest. By dawn, my phone had exploded with messages. The society pages had gotten wind of the scandal. Hawthorne wedding ends in financial fraud investigation. The headlines wrote themselves. Marcus sent text after text, alternating between threats and pleas. I blocked him after the 15th message. Victoria tried calling from different numbers. I let them all go to voicemail, saving each increasingly desperate message. Evidence was evidence, after all. My parents arrived at the hotel for breakfast, bringing my passport and a suitcase. Greece, my mother suggested. I hear it's lovely this time of year. Actually, I said, pouring coffee, I thought I'd stay and watch the show. Besides, someone needs to help Jennifer navigate the legal system. My father, who'd never liked Marcus, actually grinned. That's my girl. Your grandmother would be proud. Yes, I thought she would be. Grandma had always said the best revenge was served in legal documents. The Hawthorne family had a tradition all right, taking advantage of young women who married into their twisted dynasty. They'd been doing it for generations, building their wealth on stolen inheritances and coerced transfers. But traditions can be broken. And sometimes, all it takes is one woman who bothers to read the fine print. As I checked out of the hotel that morning, still in my wedding dress, because why not, the manager stopped me. Ms. Bennett, there's a delivery for you. It was a single white orchid with a card. No signature, just a message. The other wives are watching. You've given us hope. I tucked the card into my purse, thinking of all the Victoria Hawthornes in the world, all the Marcus Hawthornes who smiled while they robbed you blind. They'd created a tradition of taking. Maybe it was time to start a new tradition, one of fighting back. My phone buzzed. James again, motion filed. Hearing scheduled for Wednesday. The judge seemed very interested in the video evidence. I smiled, walking out into the morning sun. My marriage had lasted exactly 12 hours, but the lesson would last forever. Never sign anything without reading it. Never trust anyone who demands your money as proof of love. And never, ever underestimate a woman with a law degree and a grandmother who taught her to fight. The Hawthorne family thought they'd found another victim. Instead, they'd found their reckoning. And I was